Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Calm. Now, today we will be doing like an extended version of The Calm where we have behind the scenes with Stage 13. I am your host, Coco Shikari.
And I'm Cam.
And we are going to give it to you like it was given to us, juicy. Or we're going to figure out if it's juicy today. Now, you guys, I want to go ahead and let our guests introduce themselves. How is everybody doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Good. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. We can start with Mr. Shelton.
Hello, my name is Jamel Shelton. I'm the executive producer of PV's March.
Okay, Miss Lowe.
Sure. Hi, I am the director of script and creative at Stage 13.
Miss Skorka.
I'm Sherry Skorka. I'm head of unscripted content for Stage 13 and also one of the executive producers for March.
Okay, and Mr. Fuentes.
I am the Vice President of Unscripted Content at Stage 13 and also an executive producer on March.
Wonderful. Now, again, it has been great to have you guys. I'm so happy that you guys are here. And I'm so excited to get into those interviews because I know a lot of people are waiting, watching. We have a few people in the room with us. So they are here, tuned in, ready to ask some questions. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and just acknowledge Comm Week here at Prairie View A&M University. So everybody that's here for Comm Week, you are in for a treat. Can we do an icebreaker just to get to know everyone? Would that be fun? Okay, so let's go ahead and do an icebreaker. Everyone, tell us what college or colleges you've been to, went to, graduated from, you wanted to go to. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us what college you went to. Go ahead. Anybody can start.
Kick this thing off. I actually attended Clark Atlanta University. I'm from Houston, Texas, but I went to college at Clark Atlanta.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, Clark.
Find a way, make a way.
I'll jump in. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I ended up going to college at New York University in New York City.
Oh, I love New York.
Same.
I'll go next. I went to UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. I'm an LA born and raised kid, so you couldn't get me out of LA.
Okay.
I went to a school called Wesleyan University in Connecticut. Yeah.
Okay, good. So actually, before coming to PV, I went to Wichita State University. I figured out it wasn't for me, came on down to PV, and I've been here ever since. And I'll be graduating in May, so woo! What about you, Cam? Thank you. Stop. What about you, Cam? What about you? Have you gone anywhere else?
No, I made my one-stop shop at Prairie View, and I will be graduating with Harrington in May. So yeah, I'd love it here on the Hill.
Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into our interview questions. So we know that my beloved HBCU has been going on and on with this legacy. Okay, it is richness and legacy tied to our name. Was it hard for you guys to try to obtain that legacy or obtain that richness when producing March, when figuring out the content for March?
I'll start, and Jamel, you want to jump in? So,
go ahead.
Stage 13, we've been talking to Dr. Z for a couple of years. Actually, it's all started. We also produced a series called Marching Orders with Bethune-Cookman years ago, a short form series that was on Netflix. And, fell in love with this world. I grew up in Florida, so I obviously knew about Bethune. And then, we started digging into this world. And, Prairie View is always a top 10 band. It's impressive with its 300 plus members. And Marcel went to the Texas State Fair Classic in 2019 and saw, Prairie View and Grambling. And we started that relationship with Dr. Z at that point, and we would have these regular Zoom calls, or regular phone calls at first, and then became Zoom calls in 2020. And, I have to say that each time we met another family congrats from the school that you would introduce us to, and the more stories we heard, it's never hard to lean into the legacy. I think that this school is so rich. There's really, I feel like we just peeled back like the first layer of the onion with this series. I think there's so much more. Jamel, you were on the ground the entire time, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Attending the HBCU like Clark Atlanta, I feel like you hear a lot of like Morehouse, Spelman. You'll hear Clark in there, but I love that we had the opportunity to bring Prairie View to the forefront as the HBCU because there is so much history there, and it was easy to capture because there's a lot of students who their parents actually went to PV and they met and then now they're in the band playing just like their parents were. So I felt like it was easy to track that story along because we found out there were so many alumni who have their children actually attend the school as well. They wanted to follow in their parents' footsteps.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so speaking of March and you guys being on the ground, what exactly were the original objectives of the show? Like, did you guys have a different vision than in the beginning than how it turned out? Or what were the objectives in the beginning for the show?
I think we always wanted to tell an authentic story. That was sort of our promise, is that we didn't want to create a hair-pulling, softly scripted reality show, which, I think that definition-wise, Housewives, Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives, a lot of those shows, some of them they're real moments that happen, and I can let Marcel and Janelle talk a little bit to that, but then there's some soft scripting. We really let the drama unfold as it does. You always look back at a production, it's never perfect. I don't think you'll ever produce something and say, this is exactly the way I wanted it to be. But I think that, we wanted to tell true stories, and we wanted to find those moments of connection for the audience, whether it be because kids have relationships, or there's some faith in the next couple episodes you'll see, connections to faith, connection to hard work or struggling with grades, those real connective tissue pieces for the audience was something we always wanted to tell. And then I don't think we necessarily knew where the story was going to go when we first started. We kind of let the story unfold in real time.
Yeah, and I can jump into that. I think I'm super proud of what we accomplished. I think we told some amazing stories. If there was anything that I think kind of got in our way, it was kind of the uninvited guest of COVID. That might have stopped us from telling kind of the grand scheme of something like homecoming just wasn't as big as the homecoming that I know that you guys as PD students are expecting, right? So I think that was a little bit of something that we had to kind of maneuver, and I think we did a really good job. Kudos to the team on the ground. I was there a couple times, and I think we were able to kind of tell the story as authentically as possible, knowing that there was this, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so keeping everyone's safety was also something that was important. So we didn't get to travel a lot. I know the band didn't travel to all the locations. You guys didn't have visiting bands. So there was a little bit of just the scope of HBCU culture that just was affected by the pandemic. So I think that for me was one aspect that just we didn't really get to tell. So I hope we can tell more soon, hopefully.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. What were we gonna say, Cam?
I was just gonna just kind of tune in or comment on how COVID has really, I think, I want to say it has really hindered our HBCU experience a lot. Being that homecoming, and that's the time when we hear the bands and we're at our livest with school spirit, and not being able to have visiting bands or have to see our bands play on halftime has really played a huge part of, or just seeing COVID and it's affected us hugely. So just agreeing about what he was saying.
For sure. Okay, so what about the ideas? Because I know that in the creation of March, I'm sure that there has been plenty of ideas, creative ideas, unique ideas being thrown around. Let's do this, let's do that. But I know that you guys couldn't do it all. How did you guys kind of maneuver through that process where the majority of the ideas for March shown on the show or used for the show, or how was that writer's room?
That's a good question. question.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's a writer's room for a show like this. You know, it's a matter of it's a very collaborative effort. You know, in understanding what Dr. Zachary's program is for the students, and then speaking to all the students on a regular basis to understand what's going on in their lives and how they're trying to balance school and being in a band and their personal life, girlfriends, boyfriends, babies. You know, there's a lot going on with all of them. So it's a matter of the producers creating a relationship with the students for them to, you know, tell us everything that they have going on and all their business, and, you know, putting it out there for you guys as viewers to enjoy and watch and learn from their mistakes and, you know, be inspired from, you know, the things that they do. So it wasn't a script, but it was more of a collaborative effort of understanding where they were at in their journey for the semester that we were there with them.
Okay, good. Did anybody else want to comment?
I think it's if anybody on watching in the communications department wants to do any form of unscripted, like reality, documentary, docu-series, it's all about building trust in a relationship with the people that you are putting on camera, so that that trust is there. And I think that because of COVID, we weren't able to spend as much like physical time together in the beginning, and I think that that's a great hurdle to be over. And when you get into a rhythm with people where there's and you think about friends. At first it's like, am I texting too much? Am I talking too much? Like you have to build like a cadence in a relationship, and I think that was built over time with the students and with Dr. Z and the rest of the administration around the band, because the stories just keep getting better and better. And then we got to the end of the season, and we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to tell. So of course, we have fingers crossed for season 2.
Yeah,
Ooh.
like this it's about being on your toes the whole time, just because you actually sometimes don't know what's coming up. Like, we didn't know that he was going to make it to the SWAC championship, right? We found that out 2 weeks before, maybe. So as producers, especially producers on the ground, was pivoting in how do we capture that story and show that you guys made it to the SWAC championship. So a lot of the stories that maybe we start the season off with thinking that we're going to capture change halfway through, because this is a true unscripted documentary show. We're figuring on the ground, we don't have that script. And we do have to deviate from original plan all the time.
Okay, that's wonderful. What were you gonna say, Kim? Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So, this word unscripted has been thrown around a few times, and I just want to help our viewers out there understand, what do you mean by unscripted in terms of what that looks like when producing a show?
So unscripted is sort of a blanket term in the industry to refer to anything that doesn't have a written script to follow. It can be a game show, it can be a talk show. Even though talk show, there is scripting involved. There's a lot of writing in unscripted. It's just not a scripted dialogue. So, and then that includes reality shows and documentaries, docu-series. News programming can fall under unscripted, although journalism sometimes is in its own little world. But anything, so all the shows that Marcel, Janelle, and I work on are unscripted, whereas Sydney works for Stage 13. We have a scripted arm. So let's say we were to branch off and we were going to write the Jalen Shelby love story as a script and cast actors and write their story based on their relationship. That would fall into Sydney's space in the scripted realm.
Okay.
A good example is, as you guys are watching the show on the CW, I think a good example of like March is unscripted, where something like All American Homecoming is almost like our companion scripted show, right? You're getting like that HBCU experience. One is an actual authentic documentation of it that we're doing, but All American Homecoming, there is a script to that, right? They are telling stories that have been pre-planned, written, and eventually just told through, when they're filming.
And they're actors, so they get to like retake and do it over again. And I don't get that luxury in the reality world. It's following what
Good.
And I think that is great because it holds its true authenticity, and everybody gets to see how it plays out, and like you said, in real time. So I think that's perfect.
Speaking of, okay, so to piggyback off of Miss Skorka, I know that you mentioned a docuseries and a reality TV show. I know that a few of our viewers and a few bloggers were saying that this was a docuseries, but when we were watching the show, it felt more like a reality TV show. Could you guys tell us, was it actually a docuseries or was it reality television?
It's a docuseries edited in the same fashion as a reality series, I would say, because a reality show, I mean, in definition, they would be the same thing, basically. But what reality shows have morphed into, because for the popularity of the show, you know, and how many seasons you create, there becomes some soft scripting, and I'll let Jamel take a little bit of that with some experience in that world over the past few years. I think in docuseries, like we took a documentary and spliced it up into 8 episodes. You know, but we added music and did all the things that a reality show does. The pacing would be similar, but as far as the show itself, it is a docu-series. It is not a scripted reality show. Jamel, is there any other like pointed differences that you would?
Yeah. So for a soft docu, I guess, for example, like a Basketball Wives, you would get these two talent to meet at this location and have their dialogue about what they need to talk about. So that's why I say soft script is you're telling them where to meet at, and they may not have that conversation they want to have as soon as they plan to, because we got production schedule and we need to. But you wouldn't tell them exactly what to say. They will let them. You don't put words in their mouth. You let them say what they want to say to each other. Compared to this, we were following what was going on with the marching band. So we knew they had practice at 5 o'clock every day. So we were there to follow that practice to see what was going on with each student and what they were trying to do to jump up in the rankings from being number 8. And seeing how far they go for that semester, as you see, they made it the SWAC championship. So we're just kind of documenting, what's going on in real time. So I feel like that made it feel more docu for this particular type of project.
And the intentions of the scenes, like I think sometimes in a reality show, like it's not only that you had them meet, but you knew it, you gave them points of what they're supposed to talk about. And with a very few exceptions in this show, like even if we were telling them to meet somewhere, because if they were, hey, we need to meet you to meet at this restaurant instead of this place because it's something we have to clear locations. There's a lot of production involved that obviously that we have to know where they're going to be to have our cameras ready, but we didn't put words in their mouth of what they were supposed to say. And there's a little bit of that in some of the reality shows. Depends. Some of them are more than others.
Yeah, and sometimes it does come down into casting, or something like the Housewives. They are cast, it's an ensemble cast. They picked Housewives to be part of the show, where we went in and there was already the merch team. We just started highlighting stories from in there, but we didn't get band members from different schools and put them together. And I think that sometimes it's what differentiates from a reality show and a docuseries.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I absolutely love the stories about all the Real Housewives and the Basketball Wives. We can talk about those stories later, but I do want to ask you guys a question. So, speaking about yourselves individually, when you were becoming into your roles as segment producers, as executive producers, as VPs, because we've got 2 vice presidents on the call, what were the risks that you guys had to make in order to remain individualized?
No.
Well, first, I'd like to say Sherry's SVP. I want to give her flowers because she's killing it. She earned that title.
My goodness.
I don't know if there's risks. I mean, the entertainment industry is it fluctuates so much. It's such it's an industry that to get your foot in feels almost impossible. but it's very rewarding once you're in it. I guess for me was when I first graduated college, you had all those like shiny shows you wanted to be a part of, right? For me at the time, it was anything on MTV, it was being on Bravo. You saw these big names, and you just find out that so many people are vying for those jobs that it's almost you get lost in the shuffle. So for me, I took a different route, being bilingual. I actually went to a Spanish language channel first because I did see more opportunities there. So I had a different entry point into it. I worked at a company that was part of NBC Universal, where I actually met Sherry there. It was a channel called Mundos that doesn't exist anymore, but I'd say it was like a bilingual MTV where we did play like English music videos in Spanish. It was like a nice combination. But that was my entry point, and I just figured out my lane was there. And it's an industry that not a lot of people were vying for. Maybe it's because not a lot of people were bilingual or seeking that type of job, but I was able to move up a lot faster because there were just no people that could speak both languages. So that was just my entry point. I don't know if it was, I don't know if I answered your question, but it was just kind of a different avenue for me.
Okay, yes, you did.
And I would say, just to piggyback, since our stories are a little bit more aligned, and then I'll let these guys go. I started my career at MTV News. Now, I was a journalism major, like a lot of you guys, mass communications. I also double majored in psychology, which is only relevant because as you get older, you use your psychology degree. I use it a lot more than anything else, dealing with human beings. But I started because I was so obsessed with music, and I was able to fortunately intern and just never left, essentially, for many years. And I realized with the job at Mundos that it was being authentically myself, like having a Latino background, knowing that I love the music, being able to go to this space and create and really get in touch with my culture, which was something really interesting to me at the time. I think that it's leaning in, I think, to who you are, and leaning, like, instead of trying to become somebody else, like they talk about code switching a lot and things like that. Don't do that as little as possible, because it's honestly, especially now, authenticity is really appreciated. And I think that realizing what you're authentically into, you're going to be, the things that you're more passionate about, you're going to be better at. And also, not hiding any part of who you are, I think is something that was really a lesson I didn't learn until my second job, which was at Mundos. Sydney, I don't know if you want to jump in, because your job path is so different than ours, and then we can finish with Jamil since he was HBC grad.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about leaning into your authentic self. I mean, my family has nothing to do with media, art, industry, anything at all. My mom is an immigrant. My dad's family is from North Carolina. I feel like I should take the opportunity to say that my grandfather did go to North Carolina A&T, and he loved it. But I'm from New York, and I think that actually my first real internship or anything like that, it was actually through a foundation called the T. Howard Foundation that helps Black and brown students get into this sort of media industry. I found that because I didn't know anyone who worked in that field, programs like that were super helpful in getting that first foot through the door. And then once I was in, I would take a bunch of coffee meetings with people just to tell me how they did it and how they made it. And it's sort of a combination of putting yourself out there and being authentically yourself, because I think that people gravitate towards that. Absolutely. And that job, actually that internship, when I graduated from school, it led to a job at HBO, which was really great. It was in the creative services department, which is the department that does all of the behind the scenes, interviews with talent and writers and directors. And I really enjoyed it and learned a lot. But I wanted to be on perhaps the other side of it. And so that was still a really impactful, amazing learning experience, because my job was to sit and listen to people tell me how they did what they did. And I maybe this is just the longer answer, but yes, I think that there's a combination of taking risks and putting yourself out there, being authentically yourself, and sort of being bold in making sure you talk to people and reaching out. But yeah, I can come back to the rest of my story if helpful, but I want to give Jamil the opportunity.
Yes, I just to piggyback off what Sydney said, I feel like, um, as a college student, you guys are about to graduate and trying to like figure it out, and especially being a communication major, it's kind of an unstable industry, which could scare a lot of people. I'm for one. You can, try and get a job that's in the corporate side of things, and that's more stable, and you have a job year round and a weekly paycheck. But I'm freelance, so that could be a lot more scarier for people because once you do a project and you wrap the project, you are unemployed, and you're looking for your next gig. But you know, if you're gonna gamble on anything, you'll never lose if you gamble on yourself. So I've always been very hungry once I made the decision that I wanted to get into this industry, to always put myself out there. I actually started off as an intern at MTV while I was going to school at Clark Atlanta, and I got school credit for that, and that helped put my name out there and try to get more jobs as a production assistant and kind of move my way up the ladder. Even after I interned at MTV, I remember like 106 and Park and Comic View were doing tours around different cities, and I went up to there and I found out where they were filming at. I told them I work for free, and just so I can understand what was going on set and see what direction did I want to work in, whether it's the camera department or production side or television producer. You kind of just got to get your foot in the door so you can kind of decide what avenue you want to go and pursue from there. So again, it's a gamble, but it's a gamble on yourself, so you won't lose.
I
Oh, I
love
love that.
that. Yes,
I love
especially
that. A gamble.
especially the working for free, because I know that in today's time we think that everything that we work towards and work for, we should be paid for. And maybe that has something to do with our generation. We just really don't do things for free. But for people that are breaking out into this industry, I think that would be very beneficial to them, to all of us. And I know that you guys have probably done plenty of work for free, and you guys are in the
My
position that you
internship
are
was
now.
not paid either.
Mine wasn't either.
Mine wasn't either. It was a different time back then.
Yeah.
Yes. So see, so everybody
So,
watching, let that be an example for you. Do something for free.
so I have a.
Well, to some degree. I think be careful though, because I think internships now are paid. I think it depends. I think it's putting in some sweat equity, as I like to call it. Like I don't think that the internships that I did, they should have paid us because we were working our butts off. And if you intern now for a large company, they should be paying you some sort of stipend. But it's not nickel and diming. It's like, if somebody wants you to put in that extra hour, it is about putting in that little bit of extra, So but I do agree what you should jump in and offer to help here and there, but also I don't think that it's a bad thing. That's a really cool thing that generationally that you guys fought to get paid for
Yeah,
stuff.
I would say make sure you know your worth, and if you are, make sure you're gaining something from it, right? Sometimes it's learning that craft, right? Like if you're doing something and you have the opportunity to like learn how to do camera or audio, you're gaining something from it. But if you're just being asked to make copies and not learning anything, then think twice about that. Like just make sure you're gaining something from whatever experience you guys do.
Yeah, I didn't get paid for my internship, but I got school credit for it. It also got my foot in the door. And even when I was working for free as a production assistant, again, I needed to get my foot in the door. My goal was to understand what everyone does on set. So, as long as it makes sense to, get you to the next level where you're trying to be, then, it's priceless.
And I would say too, sometimes there are all these different grants and fellowships out there, so that if you are doing, the sweat equity sort of route, like there are sometimes fellowships or other things that can supplement that with income or with a grant or something, so that, you have money coming into your pocket while you're also learning. It's a little bit of tracking it sometimes, but it feels like it's worth it.
Anything that helps you get closer to your goal is always worth it. So that actually brings me to my my next question. That we know that success looks different for everyone. So when you guys first started, what did success first look like, and does it look different now?
Oh, no, that's
Wow.
tough.
Who's taking that first?
I don't know. You want to go first, man?
I mean, success for me when I first decided to get in the industry was actually getting a television show on air. So every time I do that, I feel like I successfully did my job and what I was trying to do. Because there's a lot of shows that don't make it. There's a lot of footage that we shoot out there that doesn't make it. So I feel that going into it, I thought that was success for me, and that's still the case. So as long as I am making a great product and it's good enough to get another season, then I feel like I was successful in what I was trying to do.
I agree. Getting your name, seeing your name, like credit your name on a show feels really good. Like it's especially the first time, right? Even if it's like a production assistant, you got your name on a show. So I think that to me was just the most, and it still is the most exciting part. Now it's doing shows that like mean something to me or matter. Like this show right now, March, means something. I think it's super important that we're spotlighting a show like this. So this is just like it's definitely like a cherry on top for me. Like, yeah, I got my names in the credit, but yet I'm doing a show that I'm really proud of, that I feel like is empowering and like inspirational. And the shows that just like deserve to be on air. So that to me is success now.
Agreed.
I'm like, I agree. I feel like when I first started off, getting paid to do any kind of creative work was probably like a measure of success for me. And I think that in my career, there have been times where you are just hustling. I was working on a film. I mean, just sleeping on spare couches and like people's bedrooms and just like doing a million other side jobs to pull in money while you're working on this thing until it kind of goes. And then it's like, okay, amazing. I've made it to this point. And I would say now, I agree with your answer, Marcel, that like having the opportunity to work on projects that you really care about and believe in is like sometimes like the best feeling in the world, with people who are smart and talented and you believe in them. I mean, I think that's a pretty amazing success. So.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and I don't think I knew what success looked like or what it was to me as I started, because I didn't know this was the career path I was going to take. And I don't know, a lot of you guys that are juniors and seniors, if you don't know what you're going to do, it's okay. Like you can figure it out a little bit on the job. I was a journalism and a psychology double major. I was debating grad school. I was debating all these things, and I got an internship that changed my life. And I ended up staying with, MTV News for so many years because I was such a music, pop culture obsessed person, and it worked out for me. And I think each step along the way, I realized like success looks like different. There's certain people now, like there's mentors, there's people whose like careers I'd like to emulate. And I can see them, that there's women who are like in their 60s who are still making really relevant content for young people and for people of all ages. And I think that that's something that I strive for as like success for me will be that I will always be able to create relevant, exciting content for years to come, even as I age out of every demo, so because you guys are young now, but like I never thought I wouldn't be 25 years old, but eventually you're not anymore. And to be able to still create things that resonate with young people is really exciting for me still.
Oh my gosh. Speaking off of what Miss Lowe said, I always get nervous because I have this dream in my mind. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to be a TV personality. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sleep on the subway trying to move to New York. It's so expensive. Oh my gosh. Or sleeping on someone's couch. No offense, Miss Lowe. I don't know if I would be so scared, but that's neither here nor there. That's a nightmare for me. A nightmare. But it's going to happen. We're going to make it. We're going to get there. Okay,
It's scary. It is scary, to your point. it's absolutely like scary and it's a risk, but you know what Jamel was saying about like taking a risk on yourself, you have to do the calculated risk of like, I think before I moved to LA, I was like, okay, how much money do I have saved? How many hours do I need to work in order to like make this work? Or, you know, I think asking for favors and friends of friends of family of friends. And so just underlining, it is scary, but you know, I think that it did pay off in ways, but trying to be smart about how you take those risks and what's going to be comfortable for you to do. So anyway,
Yeah.
So go to New York.
Yeah, you're gonna go through a few nightmares in order to get your dream to come true. So it's just part of the game.
It's all about having that passion behind your purpose and taking those risks in order to see your vision come into fruition. So it's like, what would you do? But I'd rather take that risk, and then rather than to live the rest of my life not knowing what I could have done. So, Miss Coco, you got it. We're gonna make it. Like you said, we'll be just fine.
Oh my gosh! As long
We'll
as
see you
I
in New
don't
York.
miss, you will see me. You
I
guys
think it's
will
LA
see
for me.
As long as I don't miss any meals, maybe that's my worst fear. Maybe not sleeping on the subway, but if I have to miss a meal, I don't know. I don't know if I can make it. Okay. Well, my next question is for Miss Gorka and Miss Lowe. How has it been being a woman in the industry? Did you guys ever face any discrimination, or have you ever felt like you've gotten low blowed just because you were a woman, or what's your experience? What has been your experience?
I think it's interesting because the entire beginning of my career, I spent with a lot of men. Like at MTV News, there was a lot of great women who worked there, but I ended up covering a lot of hip hop early on in my career, as Jamel and Marcel know, and I spent a lot of time in rooms with a lot of men, and I think that you just have to stand your ground. I think women these days are on definitely better footing for that. I definitely walked into situations where I would have to direct a camera crew. A lot of times in smaller cities, I would go and we would hire a local crew, and they'd look at me as a 25-year-old young woman and be like, "Why are you telling me what to do?" type of thing. And you really do have to just walk in the room with a lot of confidence and maybe a little extra bravado, because there are people who will still try to tear you down, I think, and try to make you feel like you're not confident in your ability. We'll go back to betting on yourself. Like, you're like, I was the one who had to deliver content back to my bosses back at the office. And if this, cameraman who called me like sweetie, or, asked me, like, who kept calling me young lady, it was very, derogatory towards me. Like, but you know what? I insisted on what I needed, and I didn't care that he didn't like me at the end of the day. I got what I wanted and was able to leave with the footage. I think, you just got to stand your ground as a woman. I think, thankfully I didn't fall into very serious harassment. I was very lucky because there's a lot of stories, especially in the early 2000s when I was working a lot, but I haven't faced a lot of adversity, but the adversity I did face, it just, again, you got to stand strong and don't be scared of being called the B word once in a while. Who cares? You think I'm a bitch? Well, maybe I am, but I'm going to get my job done and move on.
Yes, love that. Slow?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I feel it's funny to think about like, oh, what has my experience been like as a woman? Because I think too, a lot of that experience is informed by being a Black woman. So feeling like, oh, there's sexism and there's also racism, just in this very, very convenient sort of place where they converge together. But I think that, yes, like, I'm a person in the world. I think that those things are just abound. They're baked into, this industry. They're baked into like the country that we live in and the world that we're in. But I think as much as you can surround yourself with a community that supports you, with mentors that support you, trying your best to like align yourself with folks on projects or in spaces, you know, as much as you can control those things, because there's so much you just can't control. But I think that trying to be intentional about putting yourself in those spaces, and as you kind of rise and like move up the ranks, and you get to be able to choose a little bit more about who your crew is and who you're working with, like finding people who have similar worldviews and have that baseline of respect. I think that has also been very helpful. And some of that starts now while you're in college, you know, finding your tribe of people, like as you kind of come up. I mean, look at Marcel and Sherry, you know? So I think that's probably one of the ways that I've dealt with it. Also having like a good set of friends who you can like come home and be like, oh my gosh, do you know what happened to me today? Like,
Right.
and being able to vent about it and talk about it, and people who are going to be really empathetic and are like, that sucks. I know what that feels like. Cause that's just how you process some of those things that happen. But
Yeah, having a sounding board is really important, I think, because to differentiate when there's moments that you need to speak up and other moments where you need to take, for men and women, like there's certain things that are learning moments and certain things that are absolutely crossing the line in moments that you have to speak up in this industry, and probably every industry, but I can only speak of our own. The good thing, again, you're coming to an industry that has had a lot of checks and balances against it. The entertainment industry. I mean, the fact that they're still uncovering such wrongdoings by people that should really know better is absolutely insane. But for the most part, a lot of environments have gotten better for everybody. But having a good group, a good support system to be able to tell you when there are still situations where you need to speak up.
That's good. Okay, I can definitely relate with you, Miss Gorka, on just standing your ground. Even when people say that you are a B word or say that you are mean or you need to act like a lady. Act like a lady. I act like a lady all the time. But as far as when I'm trying to get my point across, if you're not listening to me, then I have to be overly assertive just to get you to hear what I'm saying. So I can definitely relate with that. And I can also relate with Miss Lowe about being intentional. I have been working on being intentional. I know that me and Kim can definitely speak on being intentional, because when we replay our videos, replay the shows, and we're watching and we're like, okay, we could have said this better. We could have said this better. Going with this idea, going with, where we come with our head on straight now, and we're intentional about the questions that we ask. So that was very, very good. I do have a question for Mr. Fuentes and
Miss
Mr.
Coco,
Shelton.
Miss Coco.
Yes.
Before we ask the next question, panelists, is there anybody in the live that has any questions for them? Please drop it in the chat. I can read them to them, or anybody on your side have any questions, please let us know.
Yes. So I definitely was going to give it to the audience after this very last question. So I'm glad that you reminded me. Thank you, Kim. Keeping me on track. Thank you. But okay, so Mr. Shelton and Mr. Fuentes, as a person of color, as a man of color in the industry, it would basically be the same question from Ms. Gorka and Ms. Lowe. Have you guys faced any discrimination or any hardship trying to earn your position?
Let Marcel go first.
Definitely, because the one hardship that I think of, someone who my entry point was in Spanish television, I did have a hard time doing general market. So that's just being broadcast, like things that you see just on regular TV. So for me, there's something that like Spanish TV just doesn't get enough resources. Like we're always known as, we could do it cheaper. You don't need as much crew. So there was kind of like a stigma of like, oh, you didn't do real shows. So crossing over to do kind of more mainstream shows was kind of my hurdle a little bit, but definitely, something that I had to prove myself a little bit more. I had to work a little bit harder just to prove that, like, just because I did work on what you're considering lesser shows doesn't mean it wasn't a show, and I don't know how to put on a good show.
Wow. I would say that when I first started out, I was the only person in the room who looked like me. So seeing that representation And working in the industry for 20 years now, I think it's important and a duty of mine to get more people who look like me in the room, on the production, in the field. Even March, it was pretty much a people of color production team to do that show. So that's always been one of the things that I've tried to do, is to empower and give the knowledge to people of color so they can get their foot in the door and then get to where they're trying to decide which direction they want to go to, so they can, start heading to that direction as soon as possible.
And our crew was it was intentional. It was by choice. I think, the people that you see here, like, I think we all kind of had that adversity, or we did walk onto a lot of sets with a lot of crew that didn't look like us. So us at Stage 13, along with Jamil for March, we made it like a big point that we wanted people that we wanted diversity. We wanted to reflect. It was important for us to have Jamil on the show because he understands that HBCU experience, right? We didn't want just anybody. I mean, I will speak again for me. I did a lot of shows in Spanish, and my showrunner was American and didn't speak Spanish at all. I was like the person that had to translate for my boss on a Spanish show, which it's kind of disheartening that I'm like, you're my boss, but you don't understand the show, like you don't speak the language. So for us, we made it a strong point to make sure that we are representing the content that we're shooting on, like in front of the camera, that we're representing it behind the camera.
Yeah, and not pigeonholing people. I mean, this wasn't for us when we were bringing up a good point that we, we chose Jamil as our showrunner, and then we have an amazing person in story named Carlton Jordan, who went to Howard, making sure that it wasn't just about checking boxes, about hiring like specific, okay, we need to have this many Black people on set, we need to have this many Latino people on set. It's never about that. It's about being intentional for crewing. And we're hoping that we're still not the norm in the industry. We're hoping it spreads, so like that it becomes the norm, that you really do look for diverse crews to bring that cultural sensitivity to shows. I mean, Marcel and I produced a show that was about Asian food and pop culture. Neither one of us is Asian. I mean, I could eat Asian food every day, but unfortunately, that is not the expertise that was needed. And we were able to find the right crew. And it wasn't about checking the boxes, because there were people of other cultures on the set as well, but it's about making sure that you have that somebody that's grounded in the expertise that you can only get from being part of a specific culture, or from being from Houston. I mean, that was when I first talked to Jamil and he said he's from Houston, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, you're already going to get something special from being somebody who was so close and went to Prairie View games in high school, like when he was in high school. So
it's good. Do you have anything to add, Miss Lowe?
I feel like everyone sort of said it all. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that I feel like we keep coming back to that word of intentional. Mm-hmm. And I think that's clearly what March has done. I think it's like baked into the ethos of what Stage 13 does, that intentional and intersectional perspective, finding characters who are multidimensional in all these different ways. There's no monolith for Blackness. There's no monolith like HBCU either experience, and so I think that, and I hope, and I mean, from everything I've seen, March has done such a fantastic job of capturing that, and excited that audiences and that, all the students agree. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so now those were all good answers, by the way. Now we are going to open it up to our audience members, or the people that is on the live. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and let us know. Ask away.
Please do not hesitate.
Right. Anybody? Cam, do you have any other questions that you would like to ask our panelists?
I do. I have a good question to ask. So with y'all doing so much in the industry, and y'all all have extensive backgrounds and extensive resumes within the industry, how do y'all not get complacent or burnt out? If that makes sense.
mean, you certainly get burnt out. I don't think that burnout, it happens and you just need to learn, but burnout happens in any field. And I mean, as you guys as students, I'm sure there's moments of burnout. You have to know how to check in with yourself and take some time for yourself, and whatever that thing is that helps you escape, whether it's a walk or, you know, treating yourself to nails, which I clearly need, and like other things, like, you know, it's whatever it is. But complacency is something, I think, as long as you keep challenging yourself. I think that the great thing about the entertainment industry is it never stays the same. It's changed the entire time I've worked in it. And even if you were working on the same show for your entire career, for the most part, it probably changed. Like, whether it's just, I mean, the first year I was working in the industry, it was all linear editing. I mean, that's very old school. It's like literally you have to edit from tape to tape, and you couldn't, like, you weren't sitting on either Final Cut Premiere or Avid. You were in an edit room where tapes were inserted. I mean, even those like technical changes, you know, the fact that now we're talking about things in the metaverse, like we're talking about advanced technologies within content, that always adds a challenge. And I think that, you know, the fact that we were talking about drones and like, it's things that didn't exist a few years ago. I think, to me, the new challenge keeps you from getting complacent. I don't know how you feel, Jamail, but I know you like to change things up from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, you know, you can work at Target or any regular job. Eventually, you're going to get burnt out by it. That is one of the cool things about our industry. You know, things are going to be completely different from project to project. Every single show is different. So, you know, it does help keep things fresh and keep your mind going. And, you know, you'll learn different skill sets per project too, that you can take into the next thing. So, because it is the entertainment industry, you know, it's forever changing. So it kind of helps you not be complacent. It helps you to continue to grow. And it's definitely it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You know, it's always going to be something different. It's always going to be a new way to do something, or a new camera that comes out, a new style or a new format that, you know, you just kind of got to wrap your mind around. Or you may be the one who creates that new format or the new style. So, you know, it's a matter of being creative and, you know, just always taking things to the next level. You do season 1, then you got to go, you know, to the next level on season 2. So that's just kind of the attitude you got to have about it.
I think too that I think the kinds of stories that I think we all enjoy telling, there are so many stories from different historically excluded communities that just have not been told at all. So I think that's part of not being complacent. I'm like, how can you be complacent? There's so many stories to tell, like so many different versions, like March, you know, from marching orders to March to so many other different kinds of stories. I mean, I think that's a big part of it, and agree that no production, no project is ever the same, which I think is part of the joy of the process. But burnout is absolutely real. And I think you have to calibrate and figure out how to stop it before it officially happens as best as you can, like adding in rest and, you know, play, like creative play that maybe isn't just like scrolling on social media. You know, what does it mean to actually have playtime that for yourself that feels fulfilling in other ways? And sometimes, depending on the project or the production, you may not get it like at that time, maybe exactly when you need it. But again, going back to that intentionality of like, how do you, the same way you carve out time to go to the doctor or go to this, you have to like make that time for yourself. We're still living through a global pandemic, and I think everyone collectively, globally, is burnt out in so many different ways. So
I know,
Yeah,
and right now
I mean,
the world. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say burnout is real, and it'll be different from one show to another. One might burn you out more. But for me, just quickly, I'm a fan of TV first. Like, I was obsessed with TV growing up, and it's why I got into TV. So for me, I hold other TV shows up to that standard of like, you got to keep me entertained, you got to switch it up, which makes me want to switch it up. Because I know if a show hasn't changed season after season, I'm just watching the same thing. I'm bored. I'm going to go on to the next one. And there's so much competition now out there as far as TV, whether it's, growing up, I didn't have Netflix and Hulu and Apple. Now there's so much TV that it keeps me on my toes to try to keep up and make things fresh for every show that I do moving forward.
That's good. I know that, like, for us, our generation right now, if they get burnt out or tired on anything, they run to this self-love idea, and they're going to get their nails done, they're going to get their hair done, they're reading books. Well, maybe not reading books. Some of them read books. They're going to spend all this money, they're taking trips. Oh my gosh. So self-love is big for us right now. So I don't think anybody is worried about getting burnt out. Well, at least not in our generation. They'll take a break for sure. They will take a break. For our guests that are on the show, for our viewers that are on the show, if you guys wanted to ask a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself if you want to. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, maybe not. Okay, before we end our lovely interview, we don't want to leave, but we have to. Could you guys leave us with some foundational advice on graduates getting out there into the real world, into media, into television? Do you guys mind leaving us with a little advice that I could just slip in my pocket and take with me?
I can go first on that one. Get an internship. Get around people who are trying to go the exact same direction you are. The faster you get around that, that you're around like-minded people, the better off you'll be in the long run to get where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, I could piggyback off of that. I think internships are super important, especially now. I think we're in a, if there is a silver lining of the pandemic, like remote internships are now an opportunity, which is something that a lot of even interns that I've had 2 years ago just didn't have that opportunity. So I think that's an option now. And if your goal is to work at some place like Netflix, right, because that's like a big shiny star, Google some shows that are on Netflix and maybe start at that production company that does a show for Netflix, right? You don't necessarily have to go to the top right away. I think there's a lot of ways of getting there. So I would say just do your research. And if you love a show, find out who makes it, find out who works on it, and see if you can get, into that, open that door.
Agreed. I think in addition to that, do the internships, but also in the experiences that you have at school right now, deepening like the experiences you can get around you as well, like different clubs, different opportunities on campus. I think that a big part of it is getting to know yourself better, as well as like understanding what you do and do not want to do. Sometimes I have found in my life that knowing what I don't want to do is like just as important. So try on all the hats, especially while you're in school and the stakes are a bit lower than when like maybe you've got like that gold star shiny internship thing over here. I think also probably finding your tribe, whether it's in school, through internships, otherwise. Mentors are great and super helpful. You should totally cold call, like reach out to people and do your research before you email them, to take an interest. Sometimes you'll get a response and sometimes you won't, but when you do, I think that everyone loves like to talk about themselves and like, you can learn a lot. As just as much as those are important, it's also important to like rise with the people that you are coming up with as well, because those are the people who are going to be in arms with you as you like move around and do different things. I think that's some of my advice.
Yeah, I would just to add, I mean, all of that, for sure. I always tell every young person that interns for us, I'm most impressed by those who are prepared. I do think research is important. Like, don't, we've interviewed people who, if you're interviewing with Stage 13, unless you just found out 2 minutes ago, you should at least Google, like at least find out the shows we produce or the type of content that we make, and it's not, you don't have to know everything about me. That's okay. You didn't maybe know you're meeting with me, but know the company you're interviewing with. If you're interviewing with an individual, it's so easy to find out information. Like, come into the room prepared, but not all knowing, because also the younger you are in the industry, You know, I've worked in this industry for 20 years. Like I don't want you to tell me how to live my life, you know, either. So I think it's not knowing your place in a nasty way, but knowing that, like, come into the room prepared with as much research as you can, but also with an open ear to learn. I think that's something, and there's something about, you can always tell when you're talking to that young person that is both there to learn, but also has some expertise, because youth is appreciated. Also, I said this earlier, come into the room as yourself. There is not any reason for you to try to be somebody else. I don't know what it's like in other fields. In, like, if you have to go to Wall Street, you have to pretend to be like a Wall Street person. I potentially, maybe. But in the world of entertainment, in the world of journalism, people are looking for perspectives. They're looking for your unique perspective. They're looking for, you know, like I said, I didn't hire Jamel because he's from Houston, or because he went to Clark Atlanta. It was because he had an incredible resume. And on top of that, he brought a life experience that was important. And when we talk, there's life experience. There's so much to that. I think bringing your life experience to the forefront is something super important. People are very interested in it. And I think that will set you apart from others. You will probably not be going for a job against another person with your exact same life experience. It's almost impossible, you know? The other thing I wanted to say is, just as far as internships, because a lot of seniors probably aren't gonna have this opportunity because you're in your last semester, but those of you listening who are not seniors yet and want to intern, make sure you're on top of those dates. And the reason I'm saying this is I will send Dr. Blackwell all of the information about Warner Media, because I talked to our intern recruiter before this, because I do want to get more interns from, not just from Prairie View specifically. I want Prairie View because we've been there and I've fallen in love with the school, the campus, and all the people there. But I want people from bringing those perspectives from other parts of the country and from HBCUs. And I think that, like Marcel was saying, these virtual internships have really given that opportunity, so that, because it's really cost prohibitive just to move to New York or Los Angeles and maybe Atlanta. Right now there's a lot of production there too. It's extremely cost prohibitive to move to someplace on a semi-paid internship. So use this time, the silver lining to the pandemic of learning how to work virtually. I will send him the link of where you can start, because internships open really early. Like we can't take any more summer. It's already closed. So for fall next year, they open up in May, like the application process, and they close by early June. So it's that fast that you need to get thinking about all the places. And it's similar at Viacom and other places. I worked in TV. I know that they hire interns in the same cadence. So being on top of what you want and knowing like the timing of it's really important too. So I know you guys have got it. I mean, like from the studio to the calm every week, I'm so impressed with the production values, to like whoever's doing all of your social media. It's better than some of the stuff produced by the network. Like, I mean, I look at the graphics, like all of you guys are so freaking talented, and just walk into the room with that confidence, and that swagger that you have when you're walking on campus, walking to an interview that way. You guys will be amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good. Anything you want to add, Cam?
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for your time. I really enjoyed everything y'all have laid on the table for us, and just letting us in on the insights about the march and y'all process and y'all experience within the industry. So I'm forever grateful. And just on the tidbits about how you just said the calm, we've worked really, really hard the last few weeks on putting this show together so that we can best represent our HBCU and the show. And so just hearing that just boosted my confidence. And thank you so much.
Yes, I would definitely agree. I can say that our whole entire team has been working very hard, and we have a lot of people that are behind us, supporting us, upholding us. It's been very, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot for sure. It's been difficult, but you know what? I think I'm learning more about like myself and my drive and my patience for sure, working on something like this. And I know that for a lot of people, it's just a campus show for them that they're watching. But for us, for me and Cam, if I could speak for you, I know for us, this is serious to us. This is what we want to do. This is how we see our lives unfolding right here on camera, on a couch, talking to people, interviewing them. So yes, it's been an experience. It's been a great experience. And I want to just say thank you to you all for taking the time out to give us wisdom, your knowledge, your experiences. It's been so good having you guys. And I hope that we can stay connected for sure.
For sure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. The feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yay, good. Did you like
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you guys like the interview?
It's
Yeah,
great.
it was fun.
Well, that's good. Okay, you all. We are going to go ahead and close out. Remember that it is Comm Week. Stay engaged, get involved, and of course, enjoy it. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon.
Bye, everyone.